this week's episode on Maxi Rescue Squad. I'm very delighted to be sitting here with the great Professor Greg Whyte. We just had a nice swim in the 9-degree water, just here in the lovely lake here in Cavesham. First or second day, I should say, here in the UK. As we all know, we do videos each week, and today's video is going to be talking about cold water shock and being exposed to the cold and what happens to you. And I actually had a little bit of an experience after the swim, 15-20 minutes after the swim, so I think it's very important to get the awareness out there that could happen to you. So welcome, Greg.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you, Maxi.
Thanks for coming along, mate.
Welcome to the UK.
It's good to be here. It's a beautiful sunrise this morning.
Yeah.
But the question is, mate, cold water shock, how serious is it, and how often do people, get exposed and bad things could happen?
Well, look, I mean, cold water shock is a very serious thing, and it affects everybody.
Yep.
And I think, I guess the important thing about it is that what we can do is we can reduce its impact, and I think that's the key to it. Look, we know it's a problem, but there is something we can do about it. How problematic is it? Well, about 80% of open water deaths occur because of the cold shock response.
Wow.
And what are we talking about? One of the things that we all notice is that when you get into cold water, and we've seen that today, is you start to hyperventilate. So you breathe really, really quickly. As well as that, you've got an increase in blood pressure. So all this redistribution of blood into the center of the body to try and protect it. Blood pressure rises. Yep. So heart rate rises, blood pressure rises, ventilation rate rises. So it's a massive shock, it's a real stress. And because of all of those things, it can be potentially fatal.
Yep.
It does kill people. But what we can do with experience and also knowing what to do before we get in, we can reduce the impact of it.
Yeah, no, mate, that's a great answer. And then by people getting exposed to cold water, you were saying before, a lot of people don't mean to find themselves in situations where they are in the cold. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think often this thing, we think that people drown because they go swimming. Invariably, actually, the vast majority of people who drown don't intend to be in the water. And I think that's the real worry. And obviously, if you don't intend to be in the water, invariably you're not wearing the right equipment.
Yep.
You don't necessarily know about the environment, whether there's a rip, whether there's a current, a flow, what temperature it is, all of those type of things. And the response to that, for most people, the default position is to panic.
Yeah.
And actually, panic is the last thing.
We always say to people, you need to remain calm when you find yourself in these situations.
Yes, absolutely right.
And then with what happened with me just before, so went for a beautiful swim around the boys out there. As we're swimming around, I actually was starting to get a bit of a groove towards the end. I felt really good.
Yep.
Felt very strong. Even had my head in the water, so I was getting the ice cream headache.
Yeah.
Getting out of the water, coming up, walking around, talking to people, doing a few videos and photos with what we're doing, with everything that you're doing. Went and got changed, come back out, having a nice cup of tea, coffee, and started to feel very faint, and I actually did faint for about 2 to 3 seconds. What happened to me just then?
Well, I think it's an interesting one, because I think an awful lot of, we do focus on the water itself, and without any shadow of doubt, the water element is dangerous, or can be dangerous. But actually, when it's cold water, it's actually what happens when we get out. So what you have to think is, there's this process called the after drop.
Yep.
And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect temperature. So we're what are called homeotherms. So we like to control our core body temperature around that 37 degrees centigrade mark.
Yep.
And so we try and protect that. Now what happens is that when we're in the water, we're moving, we're generating heat, and like you say,
it was a steam room.
Steam coming out.
It was a steam room.
That's right.
We're walking around a bath here and there. But that's what I thought.
But that's what it feels like. And at that point, you think it's fine. But actually what's happening when you exit cold water is that you get this attritional, this very slow drop. It can be quite rapid drop in core body temperature. And that's a real danger point, because all sorts of problematic things happen as core temperature starts to drop.
Well, like I said, to explain to people what happened, 15-20 minutes after the fact, so I was in the water, I was nowhere near the water, I felt really good. It's getting back in warm clothes, felt a bit faint, falling over, but the scary thing is literally as we were walking over, I said, what's the number one thing you want to tell people that start to swim with you or to get to go swimming? What's the number one advice? And you want to tell
Well,
them?
I mean, my golden rule, and it is absolutely
golden rule.
It's unbreakable. It's the one rule that you should always do, and that is you never swim alone. And I think it's absolutely crucial.
And like just now, if I was driving, maybe in a car you'd be a bit warm with the aircon on and stuff like that. But by myself, then and exactly as soon as I fainted and I got straight back up, first thing I said to you is that rule. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you're by yourself, you fall, hit your head. I actually did land on a seat.
Surface,
so if you hit your head on something, then you're knocked out, and then you're dealing with other issues. So I think it's very important that you always go somewhere.
And I think what's interesting, Maxi, is that there is this temptation, certainly in the UK, and I think sort of globally, this idea of wild swimming.
Yeah.
And there is something really sort of visceral, really exciting about wild swimming. But the same rule applies. Know the area, understand where you are, get some local knowledge. But whatever you do, never ever swim alone, because you just don't know. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, it doesn't matter how much you've done before.
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen.
Mate. Well, that's perfect advice. And last thing, mate, I really appreciate your time. You're a busy man. With what you're doing, do you want to just have a quick tell people what you're doing for this year, and how people can get involved at home, especially here in the UK?
Sure. I mean, so the big challenge this year is actually we're going to be swimming the Upper Thames. So the Thames is split into two. The Upper Thames is 135 miles long, and I'm going to be attempting to swim that as quickly as possible. So
that's awesome, mate.
It should be fun. So non-stop 135 miles. But one of the primary reasons for it is actually a campaign around swimming, but crucially exactly what you do, and the work you do is incredible, Maxi, and that is around water safety. Is that sadly, because of the pandemic and during lockdowns, 1 million children miss swimming lessons in the UK. And it's predicted now that 2 million children will leave school this year, primary school this year, unable to swim. Now that inability to swim is one thing, but I think what you and I have spoken about an awful lot is about water safety. It's about understanding water.
Understanding water, it's a skill. At the end of the day, it's a skill, not a fear. And the problem is a lot of people forget that. And you are going, whole point of my here, even though it's coming into spring, going into summer, it's going to be the first actual summer with no lockdowns, no restrictions. People are going to be doing anything and everything that they can to be able to be out in the sun, out in these sort of lakes, rivers, dams, at the sea. So yeah, man, it's awesome what you're doing, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to swim with you today.
It's been great, man.
And to be able
as cold as it was.
Yeah, as cold as it was, but I thought it was very important to quickly just get an expert view on what happened to me personally and what people can do at home. So thanks, brother.
Listen, keep up the great work, man. It's so important.
Mate.
Brilliant work. Safety first. That's
Safety
what matters.
first, exactly right. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. See you all next week.